Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Clarence's Classroom. Today we're going to work on the distributive property some more. I noticed that some of you are having trouble figuring out where the numbers are coming from that they're using. So we're going to start with a standard 3 by 8 rectangle and we're going to work from there. Most of you realize to find the area, it would be the length times the width. Or you could do it the opposite way, because we've always done the rows times the columns. And you could find the answer that way. The thing that the distributive property is we're going to distribute this. We're going to take the bigger number apart, and we're going to find two friendly numbers. So on your piece of paper, I'm going to stop for a minute and I want you to think about what are two friendly numbers you could use for 8. Thinking. Okay, you got two numbers? With my class, I normally say find the 5 because 5s are so simple. I know and you know that 5 plus 3 equals 8. So with the distributive property, you would be breaking the 8 apart into the 5 and the 3. So now you have 3 rows of 5 and 3 rows of 3. You need to multiply 3 times because there's still 3 rows. The distributive property is when you distribute this part to the 5 and you distribute it to the 3. And then you still add them back together because 5 plus 3 equals 8. That's where you get the numbers that you take apart, or that they end up with. So then this would be 15, and this would be 9. So 15 plus 9, I like to find the 10. So I think about how many more do I need to get to my next 10? If I'm adding, well, everybody knows 5 plus 5 is 10, right? So you would take 5 of these and that would give you 20, and then you would have 4 left over. So you would have 24. Now, here's a real important part that some people are still missing. When we're doing area, we're trying to figure out, we're either counting the squares or multiplying. We're trying to figure out how many squares does it take to cover something. So all of your answers are always going to have square for the answer. It's going to be square units. They might tell you that it's centimeters. They might tell you that it's feet. Whichever it is, it can be square centimeters, it can be square feet. It just is a square, a number of square something. So we're trying to count the squares it takes to cover something. The only thing that the distributive property does is takes the numbers apart to make them easier. Now you might think, oh, it's not a big deal. I can do 3 times 8. I'm almost a 4th grader. Well, yeah, that's good. But later on, you're going to have even bigger numbers. You're going to have things like 20 times 15 or 10 times 25. And let's think about that. Let's just do a little bigger number. Let's do a number. Let's say that this is 5. And let's pretend it's 15. Most of you don't know your 15s. You're not counting 15, 30, 45, 60, unless you've been in one of my time classes. So if you're doing 5 times 15, you're going to need to take that 15 apart. Now, Everybody knows 2s, 5s, 10s are very friendly numbers. So we have a 5 here, and we're going to take the 15 apart. Think about, what could you take the 15 apart into? Think about it. You may have said 10 plus 5 equals 15. Then you have to distribute the 5 times to each one. So you want to do the 5 times to the 10, and you want to distribute the 5 times to the 5. That's what the distributive property is. And then because you're adding them together to get 15, that's why you add there. You put parentheses on there to tell you to do that first. In my class, we go, do me first. Because parentheses are bossy. They say you have to do them first. And if you do 5 times 10, you get, if you don't know, you can count by tens. 5, 10, 15. Oh, I'm sorry. That's a mess up. You have to be careful. Mrs. Clarenson even makes mistakes. You'd have to count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Mrs. Clarenson was thinking she was going on over to the next one. And 5 times 5 is a doubles, so you probably know that. But if you don't, count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Now, if you're doing 50 and 25, some of you may have to take that apart and go the 20 plus the 50, or you might think about counting quarters. If you had 2 quarters, you'd have 50 cents. If you get another quarter, what would you have? That's right, you'd have 75. Now, instead of cents, though, this is not cents. This is what? What are these? They're squares. The number of squares it takes to cover the area. You need to know how much area it's going to cover. If you were using square feet, square centimeters, square inches, let's pretend this is feet. Then you would need square feet for your label. I hope that kind of helps you to understand more about the distributive property and where those extra numbers or different numbers come from. All it is taking the biggest number and splitting it up. You're splitting the number of boxes it takes to count, or the ones you're counting at that time. So it would be like, this is the 5 times 10, and this was the 5 times 5. Capiche? So there's a little more on the distributive property. I hope that helps a little bit. We sure love you and we miss you. We'll be glad when all this is over, and I hope that helped. Let me know if you have any questions.